to get a budget done. So that's probably what we're gonna be focusing on after today's community conversation, because I'm hoping that is done by our next community conversation. Hi.
Hi there. Just us today.
Yeah, just us.
How are you all doing?
Okay, how are you?
Good, good. I'm Jason Hoskins, state representative, one of the state representatives for Southfield, as well as Farmington Hills, like their village, and Hope Park. So happy to have you all here with us today. Yes, and we will be having a nice little chat about the budget, and there's actually been a lot of things happening in the legislature. I know I've been busy introducing a number of bills, which I'm happy to talk with you about. I kind of heard you talking. I don't know if you.
No, for those of you who don't know me, I'm State Representative Samantha Steckloff. I represent the northern part of Southfield, along with Farmington Hills, Bloomfield, Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Franklin, Bloomfield. It's just a hodgepodge of Oakland County. I serve on appropriations. I've served on appropriations my entire time in the state legislature, so the budget is definitely my wheelhouse. I personally believe it's the most important thing we do because it shows our residents where our priorities lies, technically putting our money where our mouth is. I'm in my third term here in the state legislature, and prior to that came from Farmington Hills City Council. And I think it's important to talk about local government. Both Representative Hoskins and I served in local government because as we talk about some of the things that are approaching, there's going to be a lot of talks about how things affect us at the local level. So I just want to remind you that you are very lucky. Every single one of your representatives and senators have all served in local government. So anything that affects you, as close as in your driveways, we're here to help. But I don't know if you want to begin or if you want me to. It's your show.
That's a good question. There's a lot that's been happening both in the legislature and just across the country, and we have been working very hard to respond to a lot of it. One of the things that I want to talk about is the work that we have been doing on making sure we are protecting your right to vote. I have been leading efforts in the House to get through, enact, along with Senator Moss, who is normally with us for these community conversations, but he couldn't make it this time. But we've been working on efforts to bring the Michigan Voting Rights Act here, get that passed and enacted. It passed. We introduced this a few weeks ago. It passed the Senate. It is now in the House. We're going to be calling on the Speaker to take up that legislation tomorrow. We'll see what happens. But this is in response to efforts that we thought were coming, we were seeing coming last term, in our last term, in our 2023 to 2024 term, and now unfortunately have come to pass. The U.S. Supreme Court, in a recent case, they gutted the Federal Voting Rights Act, which then allowed a number of states to start diluting the votes of minority populations. And we are obviously concerned about that. And so we wanted to be proactive in bringing forward the Michigan Voting Rights Act, which would allow, right now, if there was an issue, if a community brought forward, there's some policy, something that might cause the votes of minority groups to be diluted right now, you would have to bring a case under the Federal Voting Rights Act. This would allow us to create a state action and to be able to bring a case into state court. And so it is very important that we have those options, especially now because there was a section of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, that the Supreme Court gutted, which was the thing that really protected minority groups from having their votes diluted. And so we're creating that at the state level. We're hoping to get that through.
Yeah.
I mean, in years past, it was in Congress, it had to be renewed every so often. And it was a bipartisan thing, overwhelmingly bipartisan. But we're just at a point right now where it's been difficult to get that legislation through. And so we're working on it here at the state level, hoping to create options. And like I say, this week we're going to be calling on the speaker to bring that legislation up because we think it's something that's very important. I mean, I don't think I have to remind people in this room that how important it is, your vote, how important your vote is. Voting rights secure all other rights, as Senator Moss likes to say. And so, if you don't have, if your voice is not heard at the ballot box, it makes it difficult for you to have those conversations on housing and on health care and on education and on all the things that we all think are important. So it's why it's so critical, and it's so important to me that we do everything we can to protect the right to vote. So that's one big thing that I've been working on. I already see I have a question.
So I guess it was a rumor, because I heard last weekend, last Friday, that it had passed. So it just
In the
passed
Senate.
In the Senate,
Yeah.
not in the House?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so somebody had it wrong.
No, I wish.
Oh, yeah. I wish.
So, that's one big thing. I'll turn it over. I got like 2 other things that I'm going to talk about.
I mean, it's budget season for me, so that's kind of what we're predominantly focused on. Most likely, though, I've spoken to many of you about this in the past, guys, this is a weird job. We kind of work on so many different things at a time. It's kind of like you got to know everything about everything. So I'm working on a predatory towing bill. I've been working on a predatory towing bill for about 1.5 years now. It's a consumer protection bill. We are seeing across the board an enormous hike in predatory towing. Companies will pretty much stalk a vehicle and pull them over right away, or not pull them over, but tag the vehicle as soon as they get out. We're seeing cars being towed and stored for thousands upon thousands of dollars, some of which are worth more than the car even is. So, been working on that predatory towing bill for a very long time. Michigan State Police have finally come on board, so we are ready for a hearing. So that might be happening Thursday. Other than that, pretty much locked in a room working on budget right now. Anyone have any questions? I know it was very a little boring right now. Yes, in the back, our buddy.
In your opinion, what's keeping the budget from just going through the way it normally does right now?
Well, there's no normal anymore. We have a Speaker of the House that's kind of amplifying what it's like to be in the federal government and trying to play a game of Russian roulette almost. And that's kind of why we're in this position. The budget has to pass all chambers and be signed into law by the governor, and we have a Republican in charge of the House. Normally, these things are, they're still negotiated, but normally in the past when we've had split government before, we've been able to get a budget done. So every day is different. That's the problem. I can't really answer that question because every hour of every day is different. So now the speaker has come out and said he's no longer negotiating with the governor and only the Senate Majority Leader, but before that it was no to the SML, yes to the governor. So stay tuned. Yeah.
I have a question. Where do we stand on the felons proposed or already done order about not sending ballots to states that do not comply with his wishes? I guess that his orders to have our voting registration list turned over to the government. I'm sure we're fighting against it.
The Attorney General is fighting it. I don't know if you want to touch on it because she came and spoke.
Oh, yeah, you actually, because I wasn't able to be in the room that day, but you can touch on that. But I know that we have been, both the Attorney General and the Secretary of State have been fighting against that. We are making sure that, I just want you all to know that we have an upcoming election in August. Absentee ballots actually will be going out this week if you haven't gotten yours already. And so I want you to know your vote is definitely being protected. There are a number of conversations happening around what's been going on and what's being said by the president, and some of the things that we've seen around the country. And I know the Secretary of State in particular has had conversations with us about everything that she's been doing to make sure our right to vote is protected, and our vote and our ballots are being protected. And I know the Attorney General came and spoke with us recently, spoke with us last week about some of the efforts she's been working on. And I think you might be able to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I will tell you the state of Michigan is prepared.
Mhm.
And I think that's really important for you all to understand. But what we are aware of is that anytime anything's going to be expected in the November election, there's usually a trial run for the August primary. So what we're asking people is, if you see anything at the polls, be diligent. If there's rumors circulating that there's a fire, that was an example at like an elementary school that's a polling location. If you're there, take a video and say the house is not on fire. But this is the kind of misinformation, this very easy misinformation is going to be planted during election day, trying to keep people from the polls. So be diligent, be aware. It's going to be up to kind of each and every one of us to keep an eye open. One of the largest areas that we're expecting for the November election, that's where we're really going to see how this test run in August works. I want to give you more information, but some of it is a little private of what they're looking for. But the biggest thing is we are expecting misinformation through social media. AI is very much undetectable right now. And that's going to be the problem. Someone could literally show an AI video of a polling location on fire, and if you live in the area, if you've heard it, it's going to be upon all of us to squash those rumors. We represent huge areas, so there's only so many places we can be, but us as state representatives, we're going to be very active on election day because of misinformation.
Okay, and one other thing I wanted to tell you guys is that even though the Postal Service, the Board of Governors, the Postmaster General has put out that, they're going to try to require the Postal Service to demand what we can deliver and what we can't. That, as far as right now, we're fighting it very vigorously because our job is to deliver the mail, not pick and choose who can get a ballot and who can't, and what we can do and what we can't do. He's trying to change the rules.
I know, weaponize the Postal Service.
Yes. So.
Yeah, Dana Nessel is, she's incredible. So we'll see. This is wild.
Yeah.
Has the Southfield and the Metro Detroit area, for that matter, but in particular Southfield, do they have the same amount of voting locations that they have had in the past?
Yes, there hasn't been any changes as far as I know. It'll be the same amount of locations. The locations might be changing because I know I think there's one polling location that we're not using anymore, and I can't remember if we moved. It's in the northern part of the city, and then there's a school that we were using, I think Vandenberg. I think that might change, but the number though, there are 18 polling locations in Southfield, so there'll still be 18 polling locations in Southfield. It's just some of them might be changing because we're doing a lot of construction on schools right now, and so I think one or two of the schools might not be available, and I think there was another building on the northwest side of the city that would be in Steckloff district that we might not be using too. But it's good to check with the clerk's office.
Yeah.
Just to make sure, check, you know where your polling location is. Like I said, we have absentee voting. We have now 9 days of early voting, which if you live in Southfield or Laker Village, for example, is at Southfield City Hall. You can do early voting there. And of course, Election Day. Just check in with, some people love just voting on Election Day, which is great. We just want you to vote. But check in with with the clerk's office, and they'll be able to tell you for sure. You also probably get something in the mail also telling you where your polling location will be.
Do we have anyone that lives in Southfield Township? Any of those villages? No? Okay. There might be some changes there, but I'll keep you updated.
Well, Sam kind of touched on some consumer protection things that she's working on, and I want to just highlight some things that I'm working on. Senator Moss and I have reintroduced our legislation around price gouging during emergencies. Many of you may have heard this already, but 8 years ago, we had a major windstorm here in Michigan, and it was so bad it took out the power for millions of people. And when power was out, it was out for a few days. Some people had to go to hotels and motels to be able to, just have power, be able to maybe take a shower, do whatever they needed to do. And so there was a motel in Southfield that was, typically it would have like $59.99 flashing, but it was charging people $300 a night. And it was not a nice motel. It was kind of seedy. I'm sure there are a number of crimes that probably happened there. And it was reported to us because it was right next to a restaurant that I know Senator Moss and I used to go to, and they reached out to us and said, hey, somebody just came over from this motel and they're charging so much. And it's because the windstorm, these people were, they needed somewhere to stay, and this motel was taking advantage of that and charging these, crazy rates. And so I started looking into it. At the time, I wasn't elected. I was working as a staffer, working for Senator Moss, and I started looking into it and seeing what we can do around price gouging. And we have a price gouging law here in Michigan, but it didn't go far enough. It was too broad. And so I started to see what other states did. Over 30 other states have some price gouging law during emergencies. We are very concerned about people taking advantage of you in general, but in particular when you're, during the hardest time, during an emergency where, we saw this also during COVID, where, toilet paper was, $60, and, for you to get a face mask or, whatever good you needed, people were taking advantage of the situation, during some people's most desperate times. And so we've introduced this legislation. We almost got it through last term, but because of a technical issue, we couldn't get it through towards the end. So we reintroduced it. It will ban price gouging on essential goods, on lodging, and on energy products, which is gas. I don't know if you all know, but we are actually in a gas state of emergency right now here in Michigan. And so there, if people were the gas, because of the war in Iran and because of other geopolitical things, gas is one thing for that to be the cause, and that's accounted for in the legislation, but it's another thing just to raise the gas because you can. And so work with the Attorney General's office on this. We've been working with a number of other stakeholders. Hopefully it's something that also gets through. It is something that is not, it is blue states like California, and there's red states like Texas and Florida that have, the law we have is based on what Florida did. And because, Florida has a lot of hurricanes, and they have a lot of people who, sometimes are in dire straits, and so they don't want you know, the state of Florida doesn't want people to be taken advantage of either, so they also have this law in place. So hoping that that gets taken up. We've heard a number of stories over the years of people being taken advantage of during emergency situations, and so we're trying to you know, clamp down on that. So this is one thing that we're able to get through. Again, it's a weird time in Lansing right now, but I see little miracles happen every day. And so we put the policy out there. We see what happens. Things get negotiated depending on how important they are and, you know, how much good they can do. So I never say, you know, it's never going to happen, but because I see things that I didn't think were ever.
Hey, they said that about road funding.
Yeah. Like it's just little miracles. Little miracles happen every day.
It's kind of wild too, because the state of Michigan is one of the best states for consumer protection laws. The Attorney General, whenever she speaks at a conference, she's well known for her work in consumer protection. So it's crazy that of all these states, Michigan is not one of us. So that's kind of wild.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah. I've got a little bit movement of stuff in the Senate. Speaking of consumer protection, we have been working on adding gift card fraud into the Organized Retail Crime Act. We are seeing people get taken advantage of when they go to use their gift cards. There's no more money on them. The technology nowadays is insane. So what's happening is these big organizations will go to, let's say, like a Target, and they can scan all of the gift cards. They have a spreadsheet and technology that as soon as someone activates that, when they purchase it and activates the gift card, they can steal the funds within a matter of seconds. I got a call from one of the editors of a big publication in Lansing called MERS, and he said, do you know where this legislation is? I just went to use one of my gift cards from Christmas and there was no money on it. And we're nervous because so many of our college students are going to be using gift cards. So many of them get those for high school graduation. So we have some movement in the Senate. It was voted out of committee and now it's sitting on the Senate floor. Been working with the Attorney General on that one as well. So look at us, consumer protection.
Yeah.
Let's go. Does anyone have any questions? I know it's not slow, but it is slow, if that makes sense. I think this is the biggest time for budget, and this is what we'd normally be discussing right now. We just don't have it done. It's kind of like a hurry up and wait. Yes?
I have 2 questions, and I'll start with the first one. The first one is, need help with the cell phones. These spam calls are outrageous. I can't even use my cell phone. It's on off more than it's on, and I have to look at it to see who's calling me before I can answer it. And I have Verizon, and I got the extra review thing, so it can help me, and it's not helping. So today I was mad a little more this morning, so the numbers that kept calling me, they even called me on Sunday. I kept calling them, holding up their phone like they're holding up my phone. I mean, I applied for jobs, and like, they probably can't get through, my voicemail's full with them. Nothing's working. Anybody with T-Mobile will be happy. Because T-Mobile, I checked with chat, said that you guys have great coverage. But something needs to be done about these spam calls from the morning to night. From 7 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, on the weekend. How am I don't even, this phone, if I could throw it away, I would. Because I can't use it.
I know the Attorney General is working on this, and she's like really working on this because you are not the only one. I just can't believe your voicemail is even full of them. I've heard it's gotten outrageous.
It's also landline, so it's
Yeah.
not even just cell phones.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think in my head how I can help. I'm gonna give you, I have my office information on this. Will you send me an email, and I'm gonna have my staff try and push whatever we can through to the Attorney General. Anytime we have examples that we can help send to her, so I don't know, maybe send us a screenshot of all the calls. I don't know, I'm gonna talk to our policy and see what maybe the House Democrats can, or the House can do to help you. Yeah, but send me an email so I have your information and we can work with you on
I
that.
was even looking to sue Verizon because they charge you about $10 to $13 extra a month to get that extra feature.
And it's still going
So
through.
you're making
That's
money
what I
off
wanna
it.
hear about, that's what I'm
You're
interested
making money
in.
off of charging me this extra feature and they're still getting through.
That's the
not
part
right.
I'm most concerned about.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not right. And then I did the math. I said, if you take 1,000 people, that's 13,000 a month. And there's probably more than me, than 1,000 people that's paying an extra amount, and you still are not protected.
Okay,
Yeah, like definitely reach out, because I know the Attorney General's office has been like laser focused on spam calls, robocalls, trying to like crack down on those. And so, yes,
Yeah.
any example you can give.
you're the first person I've heard of that pays for that. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's other cases, but that's what I wanna find out. I'm sure there's a million other cases. You're the first person that's brought that specific thing up to me.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And you said you had two things.
Oh, the other thing is car insurance
Huh?
for women. There's a lot of women here, and if you're married, you can test this out and let them know.
Mhm.
Pretend that you're not and see how much your car insurance is versus being a married woman and a single woman. A friend of mine, her husband died, and she went to go get her insurance changed. It went up. I got divorced. It would go up if they had the paperwork right. So I checked. It went from 500 to like 1,300.
I'm gonna have you add that to this email.
Yeah,
'Cause that's wild.
Yeah.
yeah. That's the thing that we've been trying to work on for years.
Yeah.
How insurance companies use non-driving factors in determining the insurance rate. They look at that if you're a single woman, you don't do it if you're a man. If you're a single woman, if you're college, if you've been to college, at what level, all these things that don't have anything to do with driving.
I'm college educated. My ex was not college educated. He'd been in accidents.
And you haven't.
Yeah,
I thought my insurance went down recently because I was older, but maybe because I got married. Huh,
yeah.
yes.
I just was gonna add that with the landline, there are times where within 20 minutes, the phone rings, they spoof a number and what it says, but it's the same person when you pick up the phone.
Okay,
So, and it seems like, especially in my neighborhood, I've talked to a lot of people, and it seems like they're especially targeting seniors.
they are, they are. They are.
There's
Yeah.
different rules around landlines
Yeah.
versus cell phones, and I think it's easy. I mean, a lot of seniors have landlines still, and so they're targeting them more. It's a smaller pool, and they're just constantly going through. And yeah, that's the thing. And that's part of the reason why the Attorney General has been all over this, because sometimes that also turns into scams, where.
We've been getting a lot of the, Grandma, is that you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're using AI now
Yeah.
I mean, they're getting really sophisticated, and the Attorney General does a lot of events for seniors, because they are targeting seniors, and they will get, they'll send emails pretending to be like your children or grandchildren. They'll get their voices and pretend like they are one of your kids or your grandkids, and they'll do a whole thing of, hey, I'm in a jam, I need money, like I'm in this place. And-
We're also getting a lot of where the first thing they say is, can you hear me? Because they are recording you saying yes.
Mm.
Right, that's
And
why you don't.
then you just
say
agreed
yes
to,
use.
and the phone company is not real helpful.
And then one thing to think about with some of these calls, how is it that they know my name? And then say, well, you qualify for a loan. How do you know that I qualify for a loan? So there's some information that's getting out of here, and I'm thinking that you might check the banks and see what they're doing, what information. is
Yeah,
flowing
companies
people.
can purchase things called leads, and they can get leads numerous ways, so it kind of depends. Like if you had your credit pulled recently, that triggers a lot of companies, and they like can buy leads off of that for whatever reason. But anytime you get your credit pulled, that's like a big indicator.
And when you make that legislation, add the 3 Experian and those guys into the issue to stop selling people stuff.
Yeah.
And to get people to buy in, to say it's okay to share that information, and to make sure that the banks and credit unions are not doing the same thing, because, I mean, I don't think the banks would do it, but I think Experian and those guys would give our information out. 'Cause
Actually,
somehow,
the banks do.
yeah.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
make it so we can sue them. If we
Yeah.
get bugged to death with these things, make it so we can sue the financial, we could trace it somehow and point to, just like they're doing with Google. Google, our information, people were able to sue them and get money, showing that it harmed them. Let us start being able to sue them.
I got the wheels turning as you're
Yeah,
speaking.
yeah.
Yeah. It stinks too, because we're trying to regulate AI in the state. And I don't know if you are aware of that, but one of the original versions of HR1, Trump is making it so states cannot regulate AI. So we're working as quickly as possible to try and get stuff in there before he does what he does, because we know it was in the original HR1. AI is, depending how it's used, could be very dangerous, and we need to be able to regulate it. We were able to do some stuff for campaigns. So in 2023, we got a bill signed into law that anyone who uses AI on their campaign material have to disclose that it's AI, kind of like a paid for buy, it has to be disclosed. And Eric Nesbitt, who is running for governor, has been putting out the craziest AI videos, like him murdering the governor. There's no regulation, there's none of that. So, like I said, it can be very dangerous, so we are doing the best we can to regulate that. But the wild thing is, he's a senator in the state of Michigan. He knows what he's doing is wrong,
And we actually
for so many reasons.
filed a complaint against him, and we are about to test the limits of that law. Because in the video, his thing is, because he's from the west side of the state, and so he's on a tractor, and it looks like the tractor's about to run over Gretchen Whitmer. So we are testing this new law, but yeah, we are doing it.
It is.
But we are doing a number of things around AI. We introduced legislation around AI in the workplace. That it has to be disclosed if it's used in the hiring and the firing, if you're using it to monitor workers. I'm actually going to introduce legislation this week around protecting your image and likeness to make sure that people aren't making money off of it. This is actually something that it's been very difficult. I will say, just
Yeah, it's really hard.
in the background, like I went to a conference on AI, and the consensus was it's moving so fast, it's actually very difficult for us to regulate it. And we were doing it in bits and pieces, but at one point Colorado was working on like the gold standard of AI regulation, and they are a part-time legislature, and from the time they introduced it to the time it was passed, it was out of date. And it was so out of date that, and I can't remember the length of their sessions. We're a full-time legislature here in Michigan, but let's say they go from January to June. When they came back next January, they had to change the enactment date because it would have been useless for this law to go into effect. And so they had to make all these updates, and it just shows you how fast AI is moving. So there's little things that we've all been doing. We've done things like with regulate AI in campaigns. We also regulated and put more tools around using deepfakes.
Wow, I forgot about that.
And something called revenge porn, where people are they're putting people's faces on other people's bodies and having them do all these like sexual things. And so we strengthen the laws around that. And this legislation I'm working on around image and likeness, it is something that's actually came from from those conversations as well. It's just because people are, you're seeing like there are people using celebrities, particularly celebrities who've passed away, and they're using their image and their voices, and that's fine. You can do that in and of itself, but when you start to try to make money off of it, that's where the problem lies. And so, I'll be introducing this.
Are we have to like copyright ourselves?
I mean, that's where we're kind of, well, that's what this legislation is for. It's like, Sam and I, we're not like celebrities, but, someone could use our image and likeness, just like Eric Nesbitt was using the likeness of the governor and Jocelyn Benson and all these other people in this AI ad. It could use that and do things with it, and so we want to make sure that we're regulating these things because it could be used in a lot of nefarious ways if people wanted to, and so this is just one of the steps that we're taking and regulating AI. But it is a new frontier. It is moving fast, and we all recognize it too. And yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of crazy to think that there was a point where it almost, just like Sam was bringing up, of like, in HR 1, they were trying to ban states from regulating AI. And right now, we're the only ones who are like,
we're the only ones doing it.
The safeguards around AI right now, because there's a lot of people who've been trying to influence how AI. There are some, sometimes we don't want to stop innovation, right? And we want to see how we can really push the limits of new technology. But we are all, I think it's clear with like something like AI, that there are some things that we need to put in place, and really a number of harms that have come from AI. We in the Senate, there's legislation around regulating social media and particularly chatbots.
Yeah.
There are a number of ChatGPT and other chats that they'll talk to you, and some of these they'll you start asking for advice, you start treating it like your therapist, and it it could take you down a path and start giving you advice that you shouldn't be giving, that you should be getting from a professional. And so we're in the Senate, they introduced legislation to regulate those things, but those are kind of dangerous.
Those chat boxes are wild.
Yeah.
I mean, because what they're doing is whatever questions you're asking, they're gonna take that as part of their conversation with you, meaning there was an incident where someone who knew exactly what he was doing, very intelligent guy, and he started asking AI about what's the craziest conspiracy theories out there. Well, after, a few months, those conspiracy theories that he thought were crazy were now believable for him because, he was constantly asking for where's the information. So eventually, this chat box assumed he was a conspiracy theorist? Yeah, theorist. So that's how the conversations went. These chat boxes are wild, but it's very dangerous, yes, when you're asking for medical advice. They're wild.
Mm-hmm. And that's, we are going to be continuing to, we're going to be having a lot of conversations around AI and how to regulate it going forward.
One thing you might consider is making the AI entities, make them responsible for providing free training to people. So for example, Goodwill has a grant out where you can get free training, and it's through like Google. You learn about the prompts, what they need. But the good thing about the Google training is it teaches you that you have to check it yourself. You still need the human side. It also tells you that it makes mistakes. Now, it's in very small print when you go through the AI systems. It'll tell you, like, Claude makes mistakes. But a lot of people may not see that. But I think it's important that people become educated about that, maybe to make that bigger and put it in the very top, in the very front, so people can understand that. It's like, a lot of people love chat. Well, I used to like it, but then I used Claude and I found out that chat tells me what I want to hear. And I have to add, tell me the truth. This is really, or take it from chat and put it in the cloud. You have to use different ones to see what you're getting. I even looked for census data and said, this doesn't seem right. So, you know, I make sure and now ask it to give me the link to the source for the data. So I think maybe making them responsible for educational parts of this would be good too.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna take all of us. There's gonna be a point where, you know, we as a committee are gonna have to come together and say, what do you know? You know, what, that was a great point, you know, how can we work together on this? Yeah, 'cause, whew.
As we are going through the budget process, there are a number of things that are being talked about. I don't know how far they're going to go. It's not just the budget in and of itself. There have been a number of proposals brought forward by the speaker. You know, he's been talking a lot about property taxes, for example. You know, we all, certainly since I was on city council here in Southfield, I've heard a number of things about property taxes, that property taxes are too high. And, you know, we pay our property taxes, we get, you know, the city services, but it also is, you know, can be a barrier for home ownership, and it can be a surprise, particularly if you are buying a home and you didn't realize your property taxes were gonna go up the next year, that there was gonna be a pop-up. And so I will say there's actually been a great conversation around property taxes right now and what we can do to lower property taxes here in Michigan. And I know that the speaker wants that to be a part of the conversation as we were talking about the budget, which is fine. I welcome that conversation. But, you know, the speaker and the Republican brought forward a proposal that would have eliminated property taxes. I can't begin to tell you how detrimental that would be to local governments, because property taxes, of course, pay for police and fire and
Trash,
Yeah.
roads,
Yeah.
schools,
parks. It's a laughable, I mean.
libraries.
It's not a serious, it was not a serious, like, conversation, but, it is, we are having, he wants to have the conversation. I don't know how far it goes, but I just want you to know, like, it is something that we, just in general, that we are trying to address. There are a number of other proposals that are more reasonable. For example, expanding the homestead property tax credit so more people can take advantage of it. I think that would help lower so much, your property taxes. Right now it's at 60,000. One, it would, I think there's a conversation making sure joint filers could take advantage of it, raising the amount from 60,000 to, I don't know the number it would go to, but it would allow people to be able to take advantage, more people to take advantage of it and get some relief. But there's a number of ways I think we can be able to lower property taxes. And particularly too, that pop-up that happens when you do buy a home, and you know, I think there's some things we can do around that too. If anything, better warning people. You know, it's in your disclosures, but I mean, when you're buying a home, you're just signing a bunch of papers. You don't notice, and even like if you look in the legislation around disclosures, they have what it's supposed to look like. And it's in all caps and it's bolded, and I said, well, I mean, this must not be. And I looked through, and I said, oh, there it is, right there. It tells you like this is gonna happen, but for some reason, we are not. I mean, again, you're going through, you're signing a bunch of documents. You're not stopping to read, even the bolded all caps, and you're not being told. And there's just a number of people who are not. I can't even blame I mean, there is the realtor, whoever you're getting your mortgage through. I mean, because they all have, there's a lot of people who have a vested interest in you keeping your house. And so if you go from the mayor of Southfield, he actually gave a good example this weekend at an event I was at. He pays $4,100 a year in taxes, and someone in a comparable home to him, comparable lot size, they are paying $12,000 in taxes a year. And it's
Be
just,
my next door neighbor.
you know, and if you're on Zillow or whatever, you say like, oh, okay, you know, this house is paying $41,000. The house next door or whatever is paying $4,100 a year. Great, I'm going to be paying $4,100, and not even realizing you're gonna get. And somebody might even tell you your taxes might go up. They might be a little bit higher, but not $12,000. Like, I mean, that could if you're barely getting by. And depending on the condition of that home too, if you're already gonna have to make changes and make updates, I mean, that could, you know, cost some money to lose their home. So,
Well, if you required the Zillow listing to take the asking price for the house and figure the taxes based on the asking price, if the home was revalued to the asking price, the taxes would be, and that's the number you should have in the Zillow forms or the real estate company, you know, the real estate listing form.
We actually had that bill. It's called the Zillow
Yeah.
bill. It's called the
Okay.
Zillow bill. And I had the House version of it. There is a Senate version. The Senate version is moving. Last year it got caught up in the concurrence
Right.
situation. Senator Waino has it in, and it does that, but it triggers like the county treasurer or something. I'm trying to remember the bill. It was a while ago. Yeah, but it does something similar to that, but that's.
Right.
But it's still an estimate, you know, but it has to
It's-
say what it is particularly for
You
that.
can't tell what your assessment's
I
gonna
know.
come in at, you don't know what the sale price is gonna be. But if you do have a sales price, it's reasonable, the assessment should be 50% of that. If you base the taxes based on
Yeah.
that, then at least you know that if he buys this house for this, a reasonable estimate of your taxes would be this.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, I think it comes directly.
Because I've been in my house for 42 years, so I
Yeah,
have heavy limitations up the yin yang, but you know.
as a recent homeowner. It's been fun.
Right.
Yeah.
So with the taxes, I'm a little bit confused because I live in Latham Village and there's a discussion about how with our taxes, because is it Headley, some rules
Headley, yeah.
that is limiting, like our house could be valued at this, but the cities are not getting as much.
Right.
So
yes.
how do you deal with that, and if you want to lower the property taxes, because our city's struggling right now because of that situation, so.
Yeah, that's why a lot of times when you see a millage renewal, there's also like 2 millages because they have to bring a new millage to cover what Headley started decreasing. The Headley in the early 90s with Proposal A, it was supposed to be good for schools. And so these are unintended consequences we're dealing with 30 years later, and they're bad.
Yeah.
We cannot, it has to be a constitutional amendment. And this is what's hard about constitutional amendments. We either have to sell it throughout the House and the Senate and get a 3/4 vote, or someone has to put forth a constitutional amendment to the ballot. No matter what, it's gotta go to the ballot. So many of our ballot initiatives are things that are like easy to understand. Tax structure is definitely not easy to understand.
Yeah.
And how do you even put that in like 55 words or less, what the Headley Amendment is? So that's one of the most difficult things about tax reform, because it has to go to the ballot. And so we're trying to figure out ways to work around it.
Yes.
It's
And it's tough.
it's tough.
Because when those things were put into place, I mean, the whole concern was that people were constantly being taxed on their properties, and we put, Headley and Proposal A in place to cap the amount that your property taxes can go up, and that is what happened. But the unintended consequence is communities aren't getting the amount that they should be because of that cap, and it's forcing communities to do heavy overrides, which Lathrop Village is like in the middle of that right now because they are facing concerns around how are they going to pay for, various things. I think there was concerns around the library being able to. So Lathrop Village uses Southfield. They get the same benefits as if you lived in Southfield, and same thing with Parks and Rec and our fire. Like there's agreements between Lathrop Village and Southfield to use those services, but Lathrop Village is kind of getting to a point now where they are not getting as much revenue in, and they are having to put a number of millages on the ballot to try to be able to cover the cost of things. And it's not just Lathrop Village either. There's a number of communities that are in similar positions of like, where do we find the money when clearly the cost of things and the cost of property values are going up, but they are not able to take advantage of the higher property values. And it's good because again, it protects people, because if those values will go up, the cost of your housing will go up if we didn't have those caps. The cost of your property taxes will go up if we didn't have those caps in place. But like, there's a balance, and it's complicated to try to figure out, okay, this isn't working. How do we find a way to make sure people aren't being taxed too much, but also make sure that our local communities are getting the resources that they need to be able to provide the services that they need? That is the question, and that is why it's so difficult to, even if we wanted to do this, and people are smarter than me on the subject of property taxes, are having those conversations and figuring out, even if we want to put something on the ballot, what does that look like? What would it cover? It is a very complicated thing. That's why they pay us the big bucks.
Yeah.
So a couple months ago, there was conversation about some legislation to protect people from being picked up by ICE in front of hospitals and schools and churches and stuff like that. What happened with that?
It's still sitting in committee. Yeah, unfortunately, we have to convince a Republican to bring it up.
Yeah, so it's probably not gonna go anywhere.
Yeah. Little miracles happen. Again, little miracles happen every day.
That might be a little too big of a miracle.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you next year.
Yeah, like, you never know, like, a negotiation goes through and it's like, I'd be very impressed if an ICE, it's very interesting. There are people who do not see ICE as a problem. They see ICE agents as, people just doing their job. And the things that we're seeing, they see them as just one-offs, as opposed to like, this is how the system is designed. And so it's actually hard to convince them that there's a problem with ICE, which is a very interesting thing as we are all seeing the issues, the number of issues with ICE detention centers, ICE agents and how their interactions with people. Obviously, there have been a number of incidents around the country around ICE agents and people ending up killed. How ICE is hiring people. It's one thing that say like, oh, these are ICE agents that are doing their jobs, but it's another thing that like when you start looking into the training that ICE agents have to go through now, which is non-existent. We would never hire police officers with the level of training that ICE agents are getting now. So it's very interesting. There's a different world and a different mindset of, around ICE. And so little miracles happen every day. So maybe it can do something, but
Romulus was a miracle, right?
Yeah.
Thanks, Dana.
Yeah,
With data, I mean, you know,
Data.
data's kind of like a superpower we have.
Right.
This has to go through Matt Hall, who is,
Right.
but yeah. I don't know if you all know that the Romulus Ice Detention Center is no longer happening. Yeah, so that's a miracle. Yeah. Well, hello.
Hello,
How are you? Welcome.
thank you. Can I get started with
No,
that?
we're just doing questions right now.
Oh,
So there are also a bunch of other facilities, I think, around the country that were also
Yeah,
postponed or whatever.
we'll see.
I don't know what's
They're
going
too
on.
busy arresting people around the reflection pond, so.
yeah.
It's what happens when you fire all your scientists. Come on. Algae, hydrogen peroxide. Oh my gosh, I learned that in 7th grade science.
Your private person contractor to do something that they
Right.
probably had no
Had no
knowledge of what
experience
they were
of.
supposed to be doing in the first place.
what are you talking about? It's the libtards who infected it
That's right.
with something.
We
But
have
how did they get
a
to
company
do it?
named Greenwater Solutions.
There you go, there you go. Does anyone else have any other questions?
I have a question about data centers.
Yes?
Yes.
I had heard that if they put data centers in, you're gonna get an increase in your electric bill. I don't understand how that should work. Because they need so much power to generate for their facility, so, you know, what can be done about that?
So electricity rates are kind of like water rates. I don't know if you guys know that. So there is a grid and there is infrastructure that's going to be a solid cost no matter what. So like the infrastructure in Detroit was built for 800,000 people. Well, there's only 200,000 people using it in the city of Detroit. So that's a 600,000 person dollar amount that has to come up to spread to take care of that infrastructure. So like for water, we have been using less and less water recently, but the rates are going up because we're using less water and we still have to pay for the infrastructure. So what is being said, and again, this is, you know, we're gonna have to see how things come online, but the intent, because they use so much power, is that eventually your electricity rates will go down or stay stagnant because there's so many more people using the grid. We'll see if that's what happens, but right now in the legislation that we wrote for the data centers, it's by law cannot, the additional rates cannot go on to the ratepayers. The Senate is working on even more tailored legislation about that specific issue to make it so black and white that no one, you know, there's no cracks in that part of the law. When I say cracks, that was something that kind of, when we established this law, local governments also had to be on board. And with the Saline project, this is when people talk about things coming through the cracks, they're talking predominantly about the Saline project because the township voted the project down. Well, the company came in and sued the township. The township could not afford to go to court, so that's how that was settled. Now, they did get some community benefit. I don't want to, you know, completely wash what happened. They got a new fire station, they're getting a new recreation center. Tens of millions of dollars are going into that community. But these are the types of cracks that we're working on legislation right now in the Senate to make sure that nothing like that can happen. But a biggest one is the rates for ratepayers. It's not supposed to happen. Yeah, I'll let you follow in more.
Yeah, I was gonna say, last week, the Senate they introduced, I think the strongest data center regulations in the country, and they involve making sure, amongst other things, that ratepayers aren't shouldering that cost. They have caps on the amount of water that can be used, requiring community benefits. A lot of these data centers, and part of the reason why the legislation was done last term, was because there was an idea that these data centers were going to come in and provide all these benefits to communities. And they have in other states. They have done new fire, they are concerned about fire, right? And they want to make sure that if something happens, a fire station are very close. And so they've been investing in, like, you need a new fire truck, we'll get you a fire truck. You need a new fire station, we'll get you a fire station. We'll get you 2 fire stations. Fire truck costs $1 million. But for Google, that's nothing. A new fire station might be 3 to 5. Again, for Google, that's nothing. So, we hear all these things. In Virginia, they literally paid property taxes for, or paid some of the property taxes for a community. So, for
one's coming to Southfield.
Yeah. And so, we have $4 million. I don't think we get those benefits, but
No, it's very small.
Yeah, it's much smaller than what's in Saline, but those are things that we wanted to make sure, like, that were just, they weren't required, they were just things that we're hoping we'll get, but now there's legislation that's gonna require some community benefits to be a part of these deals. So if you're gonna come to a community, the community wants to make sure it gets something out of it. And then a banning of NDAs for the local officials, signing NDAs with these companies as well. So that's introduced in the Senate. I think they're working on a House version of it as well. The conversations continue because we want to make sure that there's obviously been a lot of conversations around data centers and the potential impact on communities, and I don't think anyone goes into doing these things hoping that or wanting communities to be impacted. I know I don't want my community to be impacted as we have a data center coming. So I have a vested, again, it's not a hyperscale, which are huge, 100+ acre data centers. In fact, there's a data center that's down the street, 123 Net.
There's actually 10, I think, in Southfield.
5.
5?
But they're nothing like, even the new one that we're gonna get, it's bigger. I can't remember the exact size, but it's not, I wanna say 700,000 square feet, which is I wish I can tell you, we were just at a building in Southfield. It's by the Corwell campus that is along the lodge. And that building was 700,000 square feet. It's actually it's not as intense when you see another building the same size. But we want to make sure that people are protected. We want to make sure that water rates, they're using water responsibly, obviously making sure ratepayers aren't shouldering the cost, and all the other environmental things. Sometimes there's noise issues with data centers. And there have been videos in other states of constant noise, and there's ways to protect against that. We want to make sure those protections are in place, of course. There's a number of things that as we are going forward, we're going to make sure our communities are protected from the data centers.
What about the water from an environmental perspective? I heard there's some issues with water tied to the data centers. Are they covering that as well in the legislation?
This legislation does.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yes.
A lot of it has to do with how you do the cooling system. So the legislation we have right now is a closed loop, so this is gonna be moved to a cooling closed loop, which uses significantly less water than even a closed loop system. So we're trying to tailor it as much as possible. I don't know if that answered your question. It's kind of like it's not supposed to, but I don't know.
How would he be able to tell?
Yeah.
We're putting verifications in.
You can't ask for a rate increase for a certain amount of years. We have a moratorium, and there's bills right now in the House and in the Senate that have moratoriums on them if these are not meeting those standards. There is a sunset on these bills to begin with in 2029. I know that seems like it's far away, but when you're doing building permits and things like that, that's not that far away. So we will continue to monitor them as they're coming, but I also want to be as transparent as possible with all of you.
DTE said before they weren't going to be raising rates. They asked for a rate increase and then turn around and got another rate increase and then turn around and ask for another one.
There's a 3-year there's also a 3-year pause on rate increases, so that bill's working its way through as well. There's a 2-year in the House and a 3-year in the Senate. Which is good news, because that means both chambers are trying to do something.
Yes.
See? Silver lining.
Yeah. DTE bringing us all together.
Bringing us
Who
together.
knew?
That's gonna be their new campaign ad. Yeah.
Is there anything that's going to start holding these utility companies' feet to the fire for the lack of maintenance? Because like the block I live in, I'm almost at 12 and Telegraph, and for 4.5 years, I had 5 pages, single-spaced, of outages for my block.
Ooh, we need to talk.
Yeah.
And
Let's make sure.
that's happened not once, but twice since I've lived there for the same block. And they will pointedly tell you on the phone, it's only 44 people.
Okay,
Okay.
let's, because you're in my district, let's talk, definitely.
You know,
I wanna get that information. Because in a lot of places, the maintenance has been, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but they really have worked on the grid the last few years, and yeah, like,
but what did they do with the millions they collected for the previous 10 years? They didn't spend it.
well, that's what we're
And now
trying to
they're
figure
still
out.
getting increase after increase after increase. And I'm so sick of hearing trees, trees, trees.
Yeah.
You butchered every tree in the subdivision.
Exactly.
You've got utility poles that are literally at a 45
Yeah.
degree angle. And in my case, the first time it was a bad transformer, but instead of replacing it, they jerry-rigged it to the next transformer. So every time everybody was home, ours would kick off. The last time, it was a circuit, and they would tell you on the phone, well, it's your circuit, then fix it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's,
And it would be blue sky. I mean, we used to joke, oh my God, it's a blue sky day, we're gonna lose our power.
okay, let's definitely talk. I'm gonna make sure,
I mean, they have finally fixed it, but we're all going, okay, this will last for probably 3 years, and then we'll have it start all over again.
Okay. Well, I hate to end it on that note.
I know. Again, DTE, bringing us all together.
Yes.
Well, this is, I'm not sure when our next community conversation is gonna be.
Yeah, I don't
We're
know if
not
we're meeting
doing one
again in July. No, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about August either. But stay tuned, however you found out about this one.
We'll keep you updated on our socials, through email, through Senator Moss as well. We'll make sure to get that information out to you, because yeah, we've got some holidays coming up in August and September.
And also, if you, I have a sign-in sheet that is outside right now. If you want, you can sign up for that, sign up, put your email on there, and you'll get emails. One, I send a monthly newsletter with all of my dates of community events that I'm doing. And also, we always send a reminder out about this particular community conversation too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
thought the notice I got said this was starting at 6:30.
now 5:30.
What questions you got?
No wonder I got,
You're like, hey!